We're going to talk about solar contributory value today. I started talking about this a lot last year in 2023. And as I demonstrated a technique that I've come up with, I had some questions and I needed to explain certain things. And really, I wanted to go through a thought process that I went through when I developed it, as I was really looking at what was out there in terms of the available education and techniques, and some of the problems that I saw. And so the first thing I want to talk about today is the income piece. So we're wanting to talk about today the different metrics for considering income. So that would be GRM, cap rate, discount rate. So those are the three we're going to talk about today, and sort of the implications in the solar realm. So first, we're going to just start talking about the GRM. If you're a residential appraiser, this is probably the one of the three that you're most familiar with, and it's pretty simple, very easy to understand. If you've used the income approach, which I hope you have at some point, this is probably the metric that you used. Couple different ways to derive it, which will be more important later as we talk about some different details relating to this technique and some of the questions that I was trying to address, is how the GRM is derived. So the textbook way of dealing with the GRM is extracting it. Take a home that's sold while it was rented, and you can derive the GRM from that sale. That, like I say, is the textbook, but that does kind of have more downsides in that the rental rate when a home sells is not always a market rental rate. In fact, a lot of times it's not, in my experience. Somebody may be selling a house after having a long-term tenant in there. Maybe they haven't kept the rents up with the market, and they decided just to sell. And so that's a common scenario, which would lead to a GRM, which really isn't as tied to the market as you would want. The other way is to estimate it on a pro forma basis. So comparing ratios of sold prices and market rental rates. And you could do that either individually, property by property, or sort of take more of a big data. Big data usually has some connotations to it, just a larger data set, and applying maybe some statistics, inferential statistics, to make some inferences as to what that would tell you about the GRM. So that is some ways that we can think about the GRM, and we'll see how they compare and contrast as we move on. So the next thing is the cap rate. So if you're a commercial appraiser, you probably think in cap rates. You probably don't think in GRM. That's perfectly normal and expected. And the concept is the same. The GRM really just deals with the gross number. As if you're looking at a profit loss statement, you're looking at the top number. What's my gross rent? Whereas cap rate is really looking at the bottom line number. You're looking at the net operating income. So the differences there is that the cap rate has expense ratios explicit. They are explicitly considered, and they're implicit in the GRM, which is a lot of times okay, because in the GRM you're dealing with your residences where a lot of the operating expenses are handled by the tenant, and so the ratios tend to be fairly uniform across residential markets. Really, a lot of the differences in practice that I see have to do with depreciation schedules, higher GRMs for newer homes, lower GRMs for older homes. Makes sense. You've got more expenses for an older property. So that would be different things to consider between cap rate and GRM. Now we want to look at discount rate. So your discount rate is used in conjunction with your discounted cash flow analysis. Those two really go together most of the time. So this has got a even much wider application in terms of investment analysis. So you might be looking at DCF for any number of different type of investments. With discounted cash flow, it's not just your expense ratios that are explicit. All your assumptions are explicit because you're setting out a set of information to forecast your cash flows into the future throughout the lifespan of your investment. So you are dealing with income, how you think that income is going to change, your expenses, how you think they're going to change over time, and different assumptions about risk. So those would be incorporated into the discount rate. So with the discount rate, you are not so much extracting it most of the time. The way it's typically taught is it's assembled more than extracted. And it's assembled through a consideration of, okay, what's the expected or desired rate of return, and what are your assumptions about levels of risk, and so those risk rates and rates of return that you're desiring assemble together into a discount rate. So the discount rate applies to that discounted cash flow analysis to estimate your net present value. So the question is the net present value equal to the market value? Because I'm really speaking to market value assignments. So in the discounted cash flow technique, the net present value is only equal to the market value if the discount rate is derived from market data, tied to the market somehow. With GRMs and cap rates, they are derived from market data, usually, not always. Sometimes the cap rate can be assembled too, actually. But in the context of a rate, either a GRM or a cap rate, which is derived from market data, then the proper application of that will be indicative of market value, because the market value is implicit in the GRM and cap rate number. So let's look at the implications for solar. So if you're relying, okay, so I'm speaking to, let's say, primarily probably residential appraisers right now, considering or thinking about I need to extract an adjustment or support an adjustment for solar on a home. If you are relying on a DCF technique, and that's probably going to be from PV value, because that is what is most commonly taught as the way for appraisers to use a DCF technique for solar. So if you are relying on that technique for a market value assignment, you must be able to demonstrate how your discount rate is tied to the market. So that's a really high hurdle for residential appraisers. So this need to tie this to market data is why the DCF is prohibited as a standalone adjustment support for solar PV systems by Fannie Mae. Should have put in as by Fannie Mae in there. So that's in the selling guide. And the reason for that is because Fannie Mae is concerned with market value, and the DCF technique is not inherently tied to the market value unless that discount rate is a market value derived discount rate. So that becomes really important when we're talking about, okay, how do we do that? Let me just state explicitly right now, I'm not intending to disparage PV value. It is a really good tool. There's a lot of things to like about it, but for you to use it in a market value assignment, you need to really understand how. And if you don't understand how, then there might be other ways, which is really what I want to talk about. With that said, what I tell people a lot with PV value for a consulting assignment where you have a client that gets to determine their own desired rate of return, the discount rate is built around that client. It's a great tool. Then all the benefits of discounted cash flow are really are really great for that scenario. So I did want to say that explicitly, that it's a good tool. If you have never checked it out, you really should go and check it out. And once you've done that, then maybe start asking the question, are there other ways? And that answer is yes. And I really hope to make that clear to you, and ultimately to help you with the tool to do that. That tool is taught in this class, Advanced Residential Solar Valuation. It's the class where I go into the tool that I created that addresses the issue that I discussed today, as well as some other issues that go into solar valuation. And so I hope you'll reach out, and maybe be curious as to what that's like, and I'd love to talk to you more about it.